Well, Maurice Cogan again, back with the answer to questions 35 and 36 of the 64 questions in my PDF document, Questions and Answers for Exporters and Export Counselors. This video discusses financing needs of U.S. exporters, question 35, and financing needs of foreign buyers of U.S. goods, question 36. And what are the sources for each? A U.S. exporter generally needs financing for three reasons: to develop export markets, to fill export orders beyond current inventory, and to cover cash flow while waiting to get paid for export sales. First, financing for market development. Exporters face a variety of costs to develop foreign markets. These can range from relatively low fees for export programs and services to higher costs for overseas trade events. The U.S. has several programs to ease the cost burden. SBA's State Trade Export Program, STEP, provides grants to state trade promotion organizations. Exporters can apply for these STEP grants from their states to offset costs for a wide range of export development and promotion activities. For example, to create and translate marketing materials, globalize the website, pay fees for USDOC market introduction and matchmaking services, and participate in overseas trade shows. These STEP grants range from $2,500 up to $15,000 per company, depending on the state. With SBA's Export Express program, exporters can borrow up to $500,000 for global marketing and other activities, including translation of export marketing literature and participation in foreign trade shows and missions. For agricultural exports, USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service, FAS, has a market access program, MAP, that covers up to 50% of the cost of overseas marketing and promotion. These funds are typically channeled through regional agricultural associations, such as the USADA branded program for agricultural exporters and Sustenance MAP branded program for agricultural exporters. Export fulfillment financing. If a foreign buyer orders more of your product than you have in stock, you'll likely need a short-term working capital loan to produce and fill the balance of the order until the export proceeds arrive. International commercial banks are the main source of such loans. However, they're often very reluctant lenders for this export purpose for fear of not getting repaid by the exporter, even if the foreign order is backed by a letter of credit. To overcome this resistance, both SBA and EXIM offer similar programs to guarantee repayment to the bank if the deal falls through. The SBA Export Working Capital Guarantee Program and EXIM Export Working Capital Guarantee Program. The main difference between the two is that EXIM will not cover military sales, and the SBA program does not have a 51% made in U.S. requirement for the export product. Even with these U.S. government guarantees, some banks may still not lend if the amount is, quote, too small, unquote, to bother with. In these cases, look for banks who are willing to finance smaller amounts in the $250,000 and under range. Cash flow financing, otherwise known as receivables financing. Except for advance payment sales, exporters are essentially out of pocket until the buyer pays up, either upon delivery or up to 30 to 120 days later for open account sales. Exporters may have cash reserves to cover the time gap, but if not, one recourse is to sell the receivable to a factoring or forfeiting company. These companies buy the receivable from the exporter and then take on the responsibility to collect from the foreign buyer. Although the exporter gets the funds up front, the 15 to 20% or so premium may be too high. Let's turn now to question 36, the foreign side of borrowing to purchase U.S. goods. Foreign buyers are often unable to purchase large orders of U.S. goods without financing. Their own governments and banks rarely finance such private projects, or they charge prohibitive interest rates. In these situations, U.S. exporters can turn to EXIM for capital equipment financing and to the USDA FAS for financing of agricultural exports. EXIM's medium-term guarantee program. This program incentivizes otherwise reluctant U.S. banks to make 1 to 5 year loans to foreign buyers of U.S. capital goods, backed by an EXIM guarantee if the foreign buyer defaults. The EXIM guarantee supports up to 100% of the transaction value after a 15% cash down payment by the foreign buyer. To qualify, the buyer must demonstrate an ability to service the debt. USDA FAS Export Credit Guarantee Program, GSM 102. This program offers a credit guarantee to U.S. lenders that finance foreign buyer purchases of U.S. agricultural products. The program is meant to enable foreign buyers, especially in emerging markets, to place bigger orders for the U.S. product. The program is available to exporters of high-value, consumer-oriented processed products such as frozen foods, fresh produce, meats, condiments, wine, and beer, and intermediate products such as hides, flour, and paper products. Bulk products such as grains, oilseeds, and rice. Well, that's it for sources of financing for U.S. exporters and foreign importers. My next video will start a series of Q&As on getting paid for export sales, beginning with question 37. What are the most common payment methods for export sales? Until then, thanks for listening.